Hi everyone, it's your friendly teacher Lydia here, and I just want to welcome you to our class here at SEDA College Online, our live class. Welcome to our SEDA students, welcome to non-SEDA students. We're just so happy all of you are here. So I want to give a little bit of time for other people to show up and to join us. So while we're waiting, let's get our essential equipment or materials together. So we definitely need to make sure we have a good pen. If you have a highlighter, awesome, very good to draw attention to important bits of your notes. Make sure you have a notebook, turn to a fresh page, write the date. Okay, and then you can begin. Once you have the date, you're ready to take your notes. The other thing I want to say to you guys is it's been so awesome doing these live classes, but I really would love as many comments as possible. Now, I think yesterday we may have had some technical difficulties because I couldn't see many comments after a while. But I would love to get feedback from you. Anytime I give you an activity, try to comment and try to let us know if there's a problem with the comments or anything, and we'll try to resolve that. Because our interacting together, me with you and you with me, is really, really great. And it makes it better for us to forge a connection. Because I don't just want to create these lessons randomly and you just have to deal with whatever I create. I would love your input, your feedback, and I want to know what you guys know, and I want to see you help each other learn, because teamwork makes the dream work. So here at SEDA College Online and SEDA College, we love to make your dreams come true. So I really want to encourage you to teamwork together so we can all live our dream together. So again, I'm Teacher Lydia, and I'm here to introduce you to some advanced lesson today. And today our advanced lesson is going to focus on reading. So if reading is something that is difficult for you in English, or you feel like you get most things when you read, but you still have to check words on every page, I'm going to give you some great techniques to really help you with this skill of reading. Okay? So I think we're ready to begin. Let's begin now. All right, so this is a skills lesson, and we're talking about reading techniques, like I just said. So I want to go through the reading techniques that we are going to cover, kind of like a little agenda, a little plan for what we're going to do, and we'll start now. Reading techniques and strategies. The first one we're going to talk about is previewing. Previewing. Prefix meaning before, view. So preview. Contextualizing. So using context clues. Contextualizing. Visualizing. Using our vision in our mind. Asking and answering questions. So making ourselves think deeper about what we're reading. Summarizing. Making sure we can convey back the information on what the reading is about. Okay, saying it back in our own words. Skimming. Reading quickly to get a big general understanding. And scanning. Reading for specific information. So that's a quick explanation of all of those. And I'm going to say the words again because I want to help you with your pronunciation. So listen and repeat after me. Preview. Preview. We're saying the infinitive. Preview. Awesome. Previewing. 3 syllables. Previewing. Great. Guys, you're doing awesome. Okay. Context. Context. Contextualize. 5 syllables. That's the infinitive of this verb. Contextualize. Contextualize. Text. All. Eyes. And then the gerund here, contextualizing. The infinitive of the next one, visualized. 3, 4, eyes. Eyes. Visualize. Visualize. Awesome, guys. Visualizing. visualizing. I'm visualizing all of you practicing in front of your computer or phone or tablet, and I want to be with you in this moment. Visualize. Asking and answering, questions. Great. Summarize. Summarizing. Skim. Skimming. Scanning. Great, so those are our reading techniques and strategies that we're going to cover today. Skills-based lessons are really important because the best way to become a fluent speaker and achieve your dream is to practice your skills. It's not just about listening and speaking. That's very, very important. But if you really want to be fluent, you really need to have great reading and writing skills too, okay? Reading helps us become better writers and speakers, new vocabulary. So number one, that first technique, previewing, is really well explained if you think about reading a newspaper article. The headlines on the newspaper, or even if you're a magazine, the big headline, the big part that explains like what the article is about. So here, the massive headline on this clip art news today is social media, taking over the world. No question mark, but it's a statement. Social media, taking over the world. All right, so previewing is all about making a guess, just an idea, your idea, as to what the content of the text is about from a headline or a title. And like I said, it works best with newspaper or magazine articles. Okay, so if this is the, big headline in the newspaper, the big main article getting all the attention, what do we think it's about? Social media taking over the world. We can assume that this is kind of negative. People might be saying in this article, the writer could be saying that social media is having a huge influence over people all over the world and kind of controlling the way they think. Maybe not in a good way. Okay? So that's what I would take from that headline. This is what you want to do when you preview. You look at the headline and you make an idea about what it's about. Okay. Number 2, contextualizing, or as I say, context clues. I always say to my students, use your context clues. That means you need to ask yourself this question: can you place it, meaning the article or the book or whatever, in a time, subject, or location? So when you're reading, you want to say, what's the big idea? What's the subject? What's the main topic? That's what it's about. So with the last article that we saw, we can take some context from this headline as well. We know that this article is going to be about social media and the world. Okay? So that is, what's the big idea? The big idea is about social media and the world. Those are our context clues. So we know in the article there's going to be words connected with those ideas. Even if we don't know every word in the article, that's okay. This is one of those things that you guys need to learn to forget about, not worry about. I didn't grow up or come out of my mother's womb when I was born knowing all the words in the English language. I had to learn from context clues. I had to learn just the way you need to learn new vocabulary. By reading, exposing myself to different situations, watching films, television, listening to the radio when I was young, but now podcasts. I mean, you have to expose yourself to the language to learn the language. So it's okay if you need to look up new words. As long as you know, okay, this article is about social media, this word's probably connected to social media or the world population or something That's the main idea of the article. Keep reading the article. Write the word you don't know down. Look it up later, and you can look over the article again quickly. It's not the end of the world. You don't have to know everything. Learning is fun. Acquiring or taking on new vocabulary to your personal vocabulary is cool. It's great. That's what life is all about, learning, growing, and experiencing. So do not feel bad if you need to use your context clues, if you don't know every word when you're reading an article. You will learn more and more as you go along, as you practice. Practice makes perfect, okay? All right, number 3, visualization. We often think of this like in meditation, where you're going to have an image in your mind, visualize. But this is really important when you're reading, okay? So we have this little quotation here from George Orwell's book, Animal Farm. And I want you to close your eyes and visualize as I read the quotation, okay? Put a picture in your mind of what you're hearing. The creatures outside looked from pig to man, and from man to pig, and from pig to man again. But already it was impossible to say which was which. So could you imagine the men and the pigs looking at each other and being confused? If you could, then you did a fantastic job. Open your eyes. Visualization is all about creating a picture in your mind. And that's really powerful and really important for you to understand situations and for your mentality just in life. If you want to accomplish something, you want to do something, it's really good to visualize it, because then you're going to have a positive idea of it in your mind, which will make it happen for you. And we do the same thing when we're reading. Words on the page mean nothing to someone who doesn't speak the language, right? Or someone who can't understand them. But once you start reading and you start understanding, you create these images in your mind, it's going to help you to remember and retain and hold on to that information. Because there's no point in reading if you're just going to forget it tomorrow. You need to retain what you read, hold on to what you read, and that's why these techniques are so important. Okay, number 4. 6 universal questions. 6 universal questions. I always talk about the 6 universal questions when reading or writing or communicating in any form. It doesn't matter if you're writing an email or you're speaking in front of people or you're reading a book or you're watching a TED Talk or you're watching a movie. If you don't understand these questions, then you're not going to remember any of it. These questions I call universal because in every language you have these questions, because every human needs to understand these things. So you want to ask and answer these questions as you read. Let's go back. So in previewing, we said it's all about making a guess as to what the content is about. And visualization is the same. You're going to picture it in your mind. Picture it in your mind. What is this that I'm seeing? And you have this great description to picture. But then if we go on and we're talking about the 6 universal questions, those are the following, and then let's go back and analyze that quote again. So who, what, where, when, why, and how. Those are the 6 universal questions. So anytime you're reading anything, you want to write those questions down and answer them as you read. As the information presents itself, write it down in your notes. It's really going to help you understand. And not just that, like I said, if you're writing an email to somebody, they need to know that information too. What are we talking about? Where are we going to talk about it? Maybe there's a meeting. When? Why are we having the meeting? How are we going to conduct the meeting? And who should be present at the meeting? These are ways that we can communicate more effectively, and we can receive communication and information more effectively. So let's go back to that quotation. The creatures, that's the who. Outside, that's the where. What are they doing? They're looking around. And more detail, who are they? Pigs and men. Why? Because they're confused. That's why they're looking around. It was impossible for them to know which was which. What else do we have? When, we don't know the when at the moment. And the how, well, they're looking at each other. That's how they're doing the activity. So you're not going to get all the questions out of one quotation, but we got 5. And we know a lot more about this, and we can analyze this better, having asked ourselves those questions to interpret this quotation and understand it better. All right. So I'm going to review now because I think it's important to review. Previewing. We're looking at the headline, and we're getting as much information as we can. And we're making a guess maybe as to what the article is about. Context clues. What's the context? Animal farm. It's all about animals on a farm who take the farm over and eradicate and eliminate the humans. Okay, so what's the context going to be? There's going to be a war, there's going to be fights, there's going to be aggression between animals and humans. Visualization. Seeing these ideas in our mind as images to help us understand. 6 universal questions. Who, what, where, when, why, how. This helps us receive information, retain it, and give out information that others will retain and understand, making our communication clearer and our understandings clearer. All right, number 5, summarizing. This is where it becomes really important to take notes. A lot of my students say to me, no, teacher, I like to type everything. That's great, and that can be useful with summarizing, but I say write it, because you're getting 2 things here. Your body memory when you're writing. When you type on a keyboard like this, you're just doing the same motion on every key. It's not a unique or different motion that gives you some body memory. But when you write, if I wanted to write something about that Animal Farm quotation, I would say, the humans and the pigs looked at each other confused. They could not differentiate between each other. So that's in my own words, very, very quickly, summarizing what I just read, rewriting it in my own words, in my own handwriting, in my body. And maybe I would type it up again later. I used to do that all the time when I was in high school. I'd write notes in class with my handwriting, and then when I came home, I would retype my notes. And that allowed me to go over the notes again, visualize and see everything again, but also edit. So here in my notes, I said the humans and the pigs looked at each other confused. They could not differentiate, so that means make the difference, differentiate between each other. So I said each other twice in 2 consecutive sentences. When I'm typing this up, I would probably use a different word the second time so as not to be repetitive. So summarizing is really, really great when you write handwritten notes first and then rewrite it in notes on a computer, because you're experiencing that information more than once and you can perfect the way you explain it. This becomes really important when you need to write a report or a paper. Always write it on paper first, as much as you can, and then write it up in a document on your computer. So that's the second time you're doing it. It's going to be better than the first. The first one is your rough draft. And then the second or third on the computer is your final draft, okay? Because you want to have some proofreading before you hand in any kind of document. Okay, so let me read my definition that I put for you here. Summarizing, recap or review. Recap, review, summarize, they all have the same meaning. So you're going to ask yourself questions, and then you're going to answer them in the summary. Okay, what happened? I kept that there because the 6 universal questions, they help you when you're summarizing. When I wrote my summary, I'm still including the same people. One thing I forgot, though, was that they were all outside, right? So those 6 universal questions helped me. I could say humans and pigs looked at each other confused. They could not differentiate between each other. The humans and pigs were outside and looked at each other confused. They could not differentiate between one another. One another is another way to say each other. So that improves my notes a little bit. What have I done there? I've edited. I've made it better by changing the second each other to one another. And I've realized I forgot one of the 6 universal questions that I knew the answer to, which was where. Where were they? They were outside. Great. Okay. So in your own words, when you summarize, you're going to describe what's happening in the text. If it's a book, then retell the story. Retell. Tell it again. If it's an article, why not write a review? You could summarize in the beginning of the review of the article and then say your opinion about the article, whether you liked it or not. These acts or actions of rewriting and summarizing the story in your own words show that you understand and comprehend the story, okay? So it's just really a way to solidify and get to that point of retention and ownership of that information, because then it's not just information, it's your knowledge. It's your library of data and information you have, your knowledge. And you always want to be adding to your knowledge, right? Okay, skimming. This is a really important technique. You also hear the word skim sometimes when you're talking about milk. Skim milk. Skim milk is basically like watered down, just like the most basic form of the milk, okay? But it's still the main idea. It's still milk. So that's what skimming is all about. Imagine you have tons of books to read. You could be a student at university. Maybe you have to do research for your company. You have to read lots of articles. They might not just be books. They could be any form of text, and you have to read a lot in a short amount of time. Skimming is your best friend because you need to understand the main idea. What is the point here? You might say, okay, but how's that different than context? Well, it's different than context because the context of all the information you're reading is probably the same. But you want to get that main idea that makes each article or each book a little bit different, okay? To get that varying information and general understanding of each one of those articles or books. So, I've written it here for you to explain it a little bit more. When you have to read lots of articles or books in a short amount of time, then skimming is your best friend. Skimming is all about using context clues and getting the main point of each page or paragraph quickly. It's not about reading for detail, but the main ideas. So again, whenever you are skimming, you'd want to use your notebook and have the articles on your computer or whatever you have physically near you, and you want to write your main points. Main ideas. What are the main ideas? Your 6 universal questions. And you want to make sure you answer them. So you maybe write who, what, where, when, why, how. That's giving you a really good kind of focus for your skimming. So say you could be reading any book. I'm going to grab a book that I have here. Catch and Kill by Ronan Farrow. What is the context of this book? Ronan Farrow is talking about how powerful people can often pay newspapers or media organizations to kill a story about them that they don't like or they think would damage them publicly. So that's your context, that's your big idea, that's your big point. But then I want to get the main ideas that Ronan Farrow has in each paragraph. So what would I do? I would take each paragraph and I'd actually start with a chapter. So the first chapter, chapter 1, is tape. So this is all about kind of recording. That's the main idea I'm getting. So as I would scan through here, I would go in each paragraph and try to get the main points. Okay? So you don't have to read the whole thing. But if you're trying to get a lot of information about how the media functions and how the media can be corrupt or how celebrities or important people can use the media for corrupt reasons, and some organizations are more corrupt than others, then this is a great book to read. And you might read several books about this subject, and you might just get a few things out of this book when you're skimming to include in a report or hold on to in your personal knowledge. All right. So that is the idea. All about using context clues and getting the main idea of each page or paragraph quickly. It's not about reading for detail, but the main ideas. So what would the opposite of that be? Reading for detail, right? That's when we get to scanning. So if you're scanning, you're going to be asking the same questions too, but after you ask those questions, you usually skim and then scan. You then want to have keywords. So if we're reading about corruption and powerful elites, then you want to be looking for keywords like bribery. That's when you pay somebody to do what you want, right? So you'd find some keywords or phrases, and maybe they're going to be euphemisms, not the real word, but like a softer way of saying it. And you extract them from the text. And that's what helps you really get your main point. So you're scanning for those words, and then you read deeper. Okay? So you might read much deeper for detail after that. Scanning, you're going to find your specifics, your keywords. It's almost like you're using a magnifying glass to really zero in on those. You're going to scan keyword and then read deeply. So let me read my little description for you. If you need to look for and extract, take out specific information from text, then you want to practice scanning. While reading, you want to keep the keywords in mind. Maybe write in your notes and keep your notes by you as you read. When you see the keywords, read those paragraphs or sections in detail and take notes. So you're reading along, kind of skimming at that point, but then you see the keyword that you want and you zero in on it. That's what makes it scanning. And you read that paragraph or that part more deeply. And that's how you extract that important information that you need. Okay. So let's recap one more time. Skills for reading techniques. And reading, guys, is one of the best hobbies or practices that you can do to improve your English. You know, if you love a certain book series, read it in English. If you've already read it before, you already know the context, you know the big ideas, you know what it's about. So it's going to be easier to learn all that new vocabulary and stuff that you want to learn in English, okay? So let's remind ourselves what these techniques are. Previewing, right? Contextualizing or using context clues. Visualizing, asking and answering questions, the 6 universal questions. Summarizing, skimming, and scanning. Okay? So, I hope that this has been really useful to you. I'm going to go back. Previewing, context clues, visualization, 6 universal questions, summarizing, using the questions to help us, skimming, scanning, and some real life situations. So, here's our favorite couple again. I've got tons of reading for my law class, the guy says. The lady or girl says, have you tried skimming or scanning? So she's offering him some of the techniques because he has a lot of law reading to do. And law reading, I've done it before, can be very boring. So you definitely need the techniques to zero in on the important information and make it useful and relevant. Okay, guys. Thank you so much for joining us on this SEDA Live. I am ready to answer your questions at any time. So if you want to leave some questions here, that's great. I try to answer them during as well, if I could. And I'm just so happy you chose us and you're here with us, and we really enjoy you. So don't forget, if you want to check out more stuff that we have on sedacollegeonline.com, you're welcome to. Maybe think about a subscription. And if you want to check out some stuff on YouTube, check it out there too. We have plenty of material there as well. And we have our great podcast on Spotify. So enjoy our material and content. We're so happy you're here with us, and keep living your dream. Thanks so much, guys. Take care.